While SBF is often seen as the shortcut to buy an HDB, but actually with the current rules, there are several watch-outs. If you go blindly, you might end up with a penalty that temporarily limits you from future launches, or you might find yourself forced to buy a 40-year-old flat you never wanted. So here are the things that you need to know before applying for SBF. First of all, SBF is not always brand new. Most people assume SBF units are just leftover BTOs, which are brand new flats that were either unselected or given up by previous buyers. While many are indeed under construction or newly completed, SBF also includes older repurchased flats. These are units that HDB has taken back from previous owners for various reasons, for example, mortgage defaults, breakups, infringements, etc. So the catch is, some of these flats can be significantly older, as you can see on my screen. You might be expecting a fresh 99-year lease only to find that the units available when your queue number is called are like 30 to 40 years old. If you aren't prepared for a decaying lease or a major renovation, you will be in a tough spot. And then the second thing you need to understand is that the penalty is real and it's kind of harsh. Under the current rules, the penalty for not picking a unit applies to BTO and also SBF, even though the limit is slightly different. So if you apply for SBF, getting a good queue number within the flat supply and invited to book a flat, then you must pick one if there are units available. For SBF, HDB will only waive the penalty if there are 5 or fewer units available for your ethnic group when it's your turn. If let's say there are still 7 units left or 8 or even 6 and you don't like any of them, you will still get hit with the penalty. So what are the penalty? For first-timers, you lose your first-timer priority for 1 year. You will be moved to the second-timer category where your chances of balloting a flat are drastically lower. And then for second-timers or single, you are going to be barred from applying for any HDB sales exercise for 1 full year, regardless of BTO or another SBF. And then the third thing that you need to understand is that there are different supply for each town. Applying for a town simply because you like the area is not the smartest way to approach SBF, honestly, because in SBF, the supply really varies from town to town, from different flat types. So if you don't check the numbers carefully, you might be fighting thousands of people for a single unit. Or even worse, you might get a queue number only to realize the supply in the town consists mostly of those older repurchased flats as mentioned earlier. Then you will need to face the bitter choice whether you want to buy the old flat with a shorter lease or you take the 1-year penalty. To make it easier to understand, let me show you the available units for this year's SBF for different flat types, starting with the 2-room flexi. So this data is taken from the HDB website, but I just turned it into charts so that it's easier for you to understand. So as you can see, the highest available unit is in Kalang Whampoa for 2-room flexi. And then the second one is Yishun has 70 2-room flexi. But then as you can see, Ang Mo Kio only have 8. And then for Sembawang only have 6. So as you can see, your chances will also depend on how many units are available. And don't forget that these are all of the 2-room flexi available units. But remember, there are specific rules for 2-room flexi in SBF because seniors will be allocated at least 40% of the flats. And where there are less than 34 units, then only seniors and first-timers will be shortlisted within the flat supply. In other words, basically singles are not getting the upper hand for SBF because the 2-room flexi will be mostly allocated for seniors as well as for first-timer families. Next up, we have the available units for 3-room. Now, the biggest supply is in Queenstown because it has 495 3-room flats available. The next option would be Bukit Merah because it has 263, followed by Kalang Whampoa with 141. But then as you can see, other places are actually doesn't have that many options, which means that most of them are mostly older repurchased flats. But of course, to know what is the percentage between repurchased flats versus newer BTO, unfortunately, we need to go to the HDB website and click one by one because Unfortunately, they don't really provide like a high-level breakdown, like which town provide how many older flats versus newer flats. Now, for example, Tengah, if I don't know any better without looking at the data, I would have assumed that Tengah just have a lot of SBF flats, but apparently in this round, it doesn't. Tengah only have very few SBF available for 3-room, and unexpectedly, it's actually Queenstown that has a lot of supply. Again, this goes to show that it's very important to look at the data. So having said that, if let's say you want to apply for a 3-room, and let's say you apply for Bishan, for example, then you have a very slim chance because there's only like 6 flats in Bishan, and again, it is a mix between newer BTO versus older repurchased flats. Now let's look at the available units for 4-room in this SBF. Queenstown have 710, followed by Bukit Merah with 527 and Kallang Whampoa by 384. So some of you messaged me asking me to discuss other areas such as Tampines, Tengah, Bishan, Bedok, etc. But then you can see here, the problem is if the number of supply is very low, for example, like Sengkang only has 7, Serangoon only have 8, usually this is a telltale sign of most of them are older repurchased flats, or maybe like one project only have like 1 unit or 2 units. So that's why it's just going to be tough if the town doesn't have many of supply of the flat type that you want in this SBF. And then next, let's look at the available flats for 5-room, 3-gen or executive apartment in this SBF. Honestly, there aren't much option because Yishun has the most with 53, but even 53 is actually not that big in the bigger scheme of all. If you remember, I showed you that for 3-room and 4-room, Queenstown, Kallang Whampoa, as well as Bukit Merah have quite a lot of available units. But then, you know, bigger flats, 5-room, 3-gen, etc. The most is only like 53 and it's in Yishun, and then the rest is just not that good. Like Queenstown even only have like 2, Toa Payoh only has 2. So again, if you want to apply for a 5-room or 3-gen or executive apartment, then you need to be extremely lucky to secure a flat. Not saying it's impossible, but statistically, you know, it is what it is. If you want to buy a 5-room, you might want to consider a BTO instead, because this round of BTO, actually there are quite a lot of 5-room units being offered in both of the Sembawang projects. So you might want to consider that. So what do you think? If your favorite town have only few SBF units being offered, are you still going to apply for that SBF, or are you going to apply for BTO or something? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye. To support my work, you can give a one-time tip by pressing the thanks button, pick the amount that you want, and click buy and send. Or you can also press the join button for exclusive contents and monthly membership. Your support means a lot to keep us independent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.